Welcome to the Precision Performance Podcast. From the ball field to the boardroom, we provide athletes and top performers with the information needed to live and compete limitlessly. Join us as we interview the most dynamic leaders in the field of sport, genetics, nutrition, cognitive performance, and more. And now your host, Dr. Ryan Fell.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Precision Performance Podcast. This week on the show we have Nick Littlehales. He is an elite sport sleep coach based out of the United Kingdom. Nick has worked with many Premier League teams. He's worked with the professional cycling team Sky Cycling. He's worked with numerous British Olympic sports teams. Nick has a lot of credibility in the world of elite sport, and a lot of teams and a lot of people turn to him for knowledge and advice. So I'm really humbled and really blessed to have him on the show this week, and I was excited to land him and get to talk to him one-on-one. We have a really interesting conversation. We imagine for a little bit that we're cowboys. We talk about a potential novel dating app that we can create out of chronotypes. So we have fun with this interview. It's a long interview, so I'm going to let you guys jump right into it and get to hear the information that Nick has to give to us. Again, I hope that if you guys are enjoying this, you're going over to iTunes and please giving us a positive rating, getting the word out to everybody. I'd really like people to hear the things that we're saying and the people we're interviewing, because I think we have some really cool information to share with everyone. So I hope that you enjoy the episode, and we'll talk to you soon. Nick Littlehales, thank you so much for joining us here on the Precision Performance Podcast. We really appreciate you taking the time to come on today.
It's an honor. It's great to speak to you and all the listeners who might be interested in learning a bit more about this crazy world of sleep I live in.
So we talked a little bit about Nick on the intro, but just to recap, he is the world's leading elite sports sleep coach. He is the author of Sleep, The Myth of 8 Hours, The Power of Naps, and The New Plan to Recharge Your Body and Mind. And this is a guy who has over 30 years experience in the world of sleep and 15 years dedicated to elite athletes. He's worked with a lot of amazing clients. He's worked with Real Madrid, Manchester United, Arsenal, Team Sky Cycling Team. So just some small dogs in the field, nothing big there. Really excited to have him on, and let's start out with just a really easy question for you. Why is sleep important, especially when it comes to elite athletes?
It always has been important, but the way we've lived our lives up until probably mid 1990s, we had a lot of opportunities for recovery breaks, although they weren't planned in. They were around us because we didn't have other things impacting on our time. So if I was waiting for a train with you, Ryan, we'd be looking at the sky, looking at the adverts, people watching, which would be classed as a recovery opportunity. But since that particular time, as we've shifted through to where we are now, we've got this just total demands of 24/7. And so within the world of sport with the athletes, their schedules are being put under even more pressure. Some of them are just non-human with the amount of events and games and training and traveling. The pressures on this 24/7 sporting media world is creating so many more demands. And when you sort of add in that, with the tech side comes a camera, becomes social media, and so a lot of athletes find it quite intimidating to be in the spotlight with literally just everybody being able to scrutinize what they do, take pictures of them when they may not ever have had it done before. So when you put all these things in the melting pot, taking sleep for granted and not treating it as a performance criteria is just something you've got to get away from really quickly. Because if you try to just sleep in one block at night, no athletes have got that opportunity with their schedules, so they have to do it in a slightly different way. So, once you think about sleep as a mental and physical recovery period rather than what sleep means to you in your head, comfy beds and lovely bedrooms and pillows and teddy bears and essential oils and lavender and all that sort of lovely sweet stuff. The reality is, in today's world, you've got to have a process throughout any 24 hours where you can grab mental and physical recovery periods in maybe 15, 20-minute, 30-minute periods during certain times, or in 90-minute blocks, but shorter blocks during the night. And add all these things in so that your recovery is more sustainable and a better quality because you've adopted a different approach. If you don't do this, what I see all the time in elite sport is just we're becoming addictive, epidemic to things like sleeping tablets, melatonin prescriptions, through to caffeine stimulation, through to type 2 diabetes, to mental health in a much broader spectrum, to people just burning out. All of these factors are really quite significant now, and the only way you can address it is to stop worrying about sleep and just redefine your approach.
So you talk a little about this in your book with the R90 program, and you talk about ways that you can go about kind of looking at your sleep in a different way than most people do in hours per night. So you suggest really basing most of your day around 90-minute cycles. You're talking to me about your nocturnal hours in one block, but you also talk about 90-minute cycles throughout your day. So why should people start looking, what is it about this 90-minute cycle and the way we should shift it? How should we start looking at our sleep now instead of maybe I need 8 hours per night and when I don't get it, I do start stressing out?
Shall I give you the non-scientific answer? Right?
Yeah, either one. I think I have a pretty broad audience of both scientists and athletes, so I think whatever you want to give.
I think when you're what I was faced with when I fell into sport, suddenly people wanted me to be a sleep coach. I had to make the job up. I had to find a way of talking to probably one of the most difficult groups you could come across. Young males in football, earning a lot of money, talking to them about sleep. Now, and nobody talks about sleep. When you're talking back in 1998, I'd only just got a phone. So what it is really, if you talk about sleep, you get this perception. So I didn't want to talk about sleep. If you talk about naps, people have got a perception in their head of some old guy, feet on a cat, next to a fire, falling asleep watching the TV. You've got this in the commercial world, snoozers are losers. So you kind of there's no way I can talk to them in this manner unless I try and change it. Now, one thing is that I came across a long time ago was that in a clinical environment, there's a thing called a polysomnograph. And a polysomnograph is, in sort of simple terms, it's like an Excel spreadsheet of columns. There's a needle there that works off the brainwave patterns coming off your frontal lobe. And as you fall into a sleep state, the needle rocks on, generating data during a period of time. Now, some would look at it in a 60-minute period. Most look at it in a 90-minute period. So you'd look at data over a 90-minute block, and then you'd correlate that to another 90-minute block. So there's a lot of information about cycles in sleep and circadian rhythms, about the harmony between patterns and cycles, which is all very relevant. So if you are talking to UK Premiership footballers, Ryan, do you know what the length of the football game is?
90 minutes.
There you go. So I thought maybe it's very relevant. It gives me an opportunity to maybe talk in a way that they were not going to expect me to talk. 5 90-minute cycles is 7.5 hours, which is, ask anybody on the planet how many hours do you try and get, they say 8, but they don't really know why. So it relates to 8 hours, 5 90-minute cycles, 7.5. It relates to a clinical process of analysing data, so it relates to that. But it also relates to it's a period of time, and it was something within this. All I did is it starts to make some sense that when you look at the circadian rhythms of the day, and without going too deep on that, the sun up and sundown process, we don't have to look too long back in our history as human beings to realise that we interact with that process far greater than anybody realises, well, most realise. And the relationship between the light and the dark shift that goes on every day and will never change, depending on where you are on the planet. It comes in different ways. But that process along with your personal chronotype, your sleep characteristic, and along with, if you think in cycles, because we've always slept in a polyphasic way, which means shorter periods more often, at night, midday, early evening. We've always done that up until we brought in the electric light bulb and put blue light into our evenings, which kept us serotonin high and meant we could only sleep at night. But the reason why the cycles just make some sense is because when you're working with coaches and athletes, we're just looking, right, we're going to put this athlete on a 5-cycle routine. That one's going to be on a 4-cycle. We're going to have to use a 3-cycle routine during that period of time running into an event. This is a single-handed round-the-world sailor, so he's on a race around the world single-handed for 3 months. So we're putting him on 26 minutes every 6 hours. That's his cycle. And you sort of, you can actually start to build something. And an individual or a coach can say, look, over the next 7 days, I'm not in control of everything, but I'm going to try and get 5 90-minute recovery cycles in every 24 hours. But how they're going to come might be 3 at night. It might translate into a 30-minute one midday in a controlled recharge moment, mental and physical recharge. Some would call it a nap. I'd do it, and it might also come across early evening because we've got events in the evening, or it's summer, so there's plenty of light around. So over the period, we're looking for 35 cycles, 5 times 7. But they might come in different places, and they might be made up of 30 90-minute back-to-back cycles with 5 20 or 30-minute ones taken at key points during the day. So it's rather than looking at hours and this whole process of I wake up in the morning, I go through my day until a point comes along when there's only so many hours left before I've got to get up and do it again. So I'm going to go to sleep. In an athlete's world, first 90 minutes of the day, every 90 minutes quick breaks all add up to recovery. 1 minute here, 2 minutes there. Obviously, fueling and hydrating moments, fine. Little 20-minute one there at the right time to recharge and go to bed later to take the pressure off the evening. Then I stop worrying about it. Now I'm getting better quality, but I'm actually sleeping less. But I'm getting better quality. And I don't lie in bed trying to catch up. I don't go to bed early to catch up. I'm now in a sort of, I'm doing a recharge 20 tomorrow afternoon. I'm doing 5 cycles tonight. I'm doing 4 cycles there, 3 cycles here. I don't get back late, so I'm doing 2 cycles here. And suddenly, we stop talking about sleep. We're talking about how the hell do you get from A to B with all the pressures.
I think that's what I really like most about this program, and when I've started implementing myself, is the ability that you do the changes really in your mind of how you view sleep, and you do start to view it as something that is controllable. And I was under a lot of stress with trying to get to bed at appropriate times, getting my 8 hours in, and I was stressing my wife out. And since I've implemented the program, it's like, and I've looked for those areas throughout my week and planned it out. Where do my 30-minute naps come from? Where can I look for recovery periods? And it's really changed it. So I love how you change it from an abstract thought to something that's manageable. You talked a little bit about naps and how you kind of rebranded those as controlled recovery periods due to that probably inherent bias that people have against that. Can you talk a little bit more about how you can utilize controlled recovery periods or naps in the day, and when it's best to really go about doing that?
If you read the book or tap in your browser, circadian rhythms, it will bring up images of the 24-hour period and the process of sun up and sun down and how this affects us as human beings. And when you start to get a little better knowledge of that, you will then realize, like we just touched on, that up until the light bulb, polyphasic sleep approach, shorter, more often. The other two completely natural periods where the urge and need to go to sleep really is high is around the period between 1 and 3. So around that lunchtime period, when normally the sun's been at its height and is now starting to drift down again. So you've got the height of the midday sun around that period, and as you fuel up, that lunchtime around that period is where you can so easily just go into a sleep state, because the urge and need, as far as your brain is concerned, is at its highest. The next, i.e. siesta in Spain, is still there.
Yeah.
When you get to the early evening, between sort of, 5, 7-ish, that area, then depending on your chronotype, that will be another fatigue slump. And you're also getting really, really close to the peak of urge and need to go to sleep again, which is normally around 11, 12 o'clock at night, right? Because we've just put a clock on it, Ryan. So this is happening. But so when you're looking at it, everybody's got the opportunity, is if they don't tell everybody that this is what they do, it's yours, it's personal. So maybe there's a train ride home, the commute home after work, and it happens to be, around 5 or 6 or 7 o'clock. And instead of getting onto the train and carry on doing smart tech stuff or whatever it is and trying to still be active, you put all your personal belongings away safe into your bag. You make that secure. You do your little mindfulness thing of removing all the sounds around you to listen to your breathing, to just zone out, and you just zone out. You've got your alarm on for 20 or 30 minutes. You might put some headsets on to give you some sort of constant noise just to help. You do your little thing, and so what you're doing is you're taking specifically, you're having a controlled period here. This is a recharge for you mentally. This is going to raise alertness and awareness over 50%. It's going to mean you'll take the pressure off the evening of having to want to get home, cook your dinner, do this, finish that, oh God, I've got to go to bed. You take the pressure off and go to sleep later for a purpose. You get better out of your shorter period at night, say 4 cycles, 6 hours is so common. So, I mean, you read a lot of research, like, if you go down from 8 hours to 6 hours, you'll lose performance, and things like that coming out of all the universities. I'm not saying we sleep less. It's just the way we do it. Mm-hmm. I consider so when you sort of think, well, I'm going to sleep 4 cycles, 6 hours, but I go to sleep at 12:30, I wake at 6:30, and I don't wake up to go to the toilet. I don't wake up because I get too hot. I don't wake up because I'm thinking about stuff. It's a shorter period, so I go straight through it, hopefully unlocking more benefit. Whereas trying to do it for a long period of time, even some people will, might go to have a sleep-wake cycle. They'll go and do 2 cycles, 3 hours. They will wake for a cycle and be active, like making lunch for tomorrow or ironing a shirt or packing a bag. They won't be waking themselves up properly, but they'll do functional things, and then they'll go back and do another 2 cycles. So once you start to think like that, it starts to really help you with everything. So those nap periods, they don't become, I don't let anybody know that I'm doing it, and a lot of athletes and coaches don't. And I hope, maybe you're closest to you, but in the normal workplace or anywhere else, it's just, okay, I'm going into lunch. I have 45 minutes for lunch, mm-hmm. So I eat, and then I go and sit in the car and do a 20. Mm-hmm. I go and sit in the toilet in a cubicle and do a 20. I go and sit outside on a bench and do a 20. I'm just zoning out. I don't care whether I go to sleep. I don't care whether I have a micro sleep. I'm not trying to say, I've got to go and curl up and go to sleep. Well, I can't do that now because I don't feel sleepy, or I can't do this where I am. If you change the mindset of you going into a sleep state and just zone it out, you can do this in the graveyard slot meeting straight after lunch when the boss is doing all his strategy to everybody in the sales team, right?
Yeah.
And you're sat in the office and you just, you're in the room, but you've disappeared, haven't you? And you're still awake. You can fall asleep behind the wheel of a car on a motorway doing 70 miles an hour, right?
Yeah.
Why can't we stop that happening? Why can't we stop that happening? It's because if you it's a bit like white noise, it's a bit like sound. If you put visualization, constant visualization, if you put constant sound, whether that's somebody speaking to you or a fan or air conditioning or just general noise of the city outside, you just put those things in place, and you know that your brain really, really, really wants you to do this, because you've looked at the graph, you've looked at that flow. The sun comes up in the morning, depending on the seasons, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6:30. That sun comes up, fills us with serotonin. We've been at this now, and we're going. I think, just to jump off a little bit, I think the one thing that surprises most people, and sometimes me when I say it, but when you wake up in the morning, you're not becoming more awake every hour. The process is you are just moving on a steady sort of like back up the ski slope. You're going back up the steep slope, and you're going to get to the top, and then you go straight down the other side into wake again. So all you're doing every hour is moving closer and closer and closer to fatigue, to needing to sleep, to needing to recover. So you're not getting more awake. And so it's once you start to get your head around that, you know how important it is. And as a long answer to your question, Robert, a lot of people worry about their sleep, like you pointed out. They don't get the quality. They can't sleep all the way through. They wake up in the middle of the night, maybe 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and worry about going back to sleep because everybody else is asleep and we're not. They don't get the quality. They don't enjoy going to sleep because they're not going to get the benefits, and they'll wake up in the morning feeling crap and everything else. And once you realise that things like tiny little breaks, take that 2-litre bottle of water off your desk and put it back in the canteen or kitchen. So if I think I've been talking to you for over an hour, maybe an hour and 15 minutes, or I've been doing something for over an hour and 15 minutes, hour and 20, so I'm moving towards this 90-minute period of doing something consistent, stop, go and get a drink of water from the kitchen. Try to always give you, so all of these little things add up. So when you do go into a more prolonged sleep period, like 2 or 3 or 4 90-minute cycles together, up to 6 hours, is you've really helped your brain throughout the day deal with the 24/7 world. You've helped it. You've given it these little natural things that we've taken away from it. So we're making it a darn sight more difficult for the brain to do this for us, because we invented the light bulb. Then we invented daylight saving time in the war years, and we haven't gone back yet, which is ridiculous. Then we invented technology, which has just gone woof straight into our world and just takes every little piece of recovery moment away from us completely. So you've got to give it a bit of a hand.
Yeah.
So when you do go into sleep, it goes, thank you very much. I will now take you down, and we'll have a nice swim in that great restorative stuff, deep sleep at the bottom, and let's go and do it again. So I think the worst thing you want to do is tell everybody that you do it and just keep it to yourself, because they don't even know you're doing it. In fact, somebody said to me the other day, didn't I hear you say that you could nap when somebody was talking to you? And I said, well, they just thought I was a good listener. Because I was actually looking straight through them at that vase of flowers on the back wall. I was awake, but I was in a mindfulness state, and they did talk for 10 or 15 minutes, but I got a nice little break while that was happening.
So the key here is to not let my wife hear this podcast, so then I can do that sometimes when she's talking about things I don't want to talk about. Is that what you're telling me?
Right.
So you talked a little bit about how sometimes we get in this psychological process of we've missed our sleep and now we have to catch up on it. And you talk a lot in the book, about consistent sleep and wake times. So can you talk a little bit about the science behind why it really doesn't matter if we have some of that lost sleep because of how our bodies kind of make up for that on its own?
I think once you sort of take in what we've just described, is you are helping the brain, so you can keep these little recovery moments in. You can catch up with that 20-30 minute one midday, and if you do that quite early on in that period, maybe 12:30, after 12, close to 1, you can put one in there and another one between 5 and 7. So what you do is sometimes it might be just one in the evening, and I can touch on that because it's relevant to chronotypes. But you could do 2 that day, one early midday, and then one early evening. So rather than sleeping in later and trying to catch up, what you're doing is just helping your brain to follow this process, but you're doing it in a natural way rather than sleeping in too late and going to bed too early, and it messes around with the schedule. So you can always think that maybe in the course of 7 days that I might look at that schedule, say I'm looking for 35 cycles, so maybe Sunday night I can get 5 cycles in between 11 and 6:30. 6:30 is my constant wake time, by the way, which is quite key to anybody's program. Is if everybody's got a wake time which they have to get up for occupation or whatever it is, their chronotype determines it. So everybody's got one, and the key thing is if you keep that in place best you can in any particular period, it's a nice anchor point to work through everything else. And whilst you want to have, if I lose out on 5 cycles, because it's 3 cycles that night because we've got an event on, or I'm training late, or I'm not getting back from a plane, so it's 3 cycles at night, you balance it with 1 in the day, you're looking at that all the way along, and the way that you don't need to start thinking about catching up, because you're not, if you've got sleep debt, it's gone, right? You carry it around in other ways with mood, motivation, alertness, awareness, things like that, but it's gone. Sleeping for some more hours doesn't really put it right. Don't get me wrong, if you've had a hell of a time and it's your day off and you choose you want to have a duvet day for the sake of argument, and you want to stay in relaxed mode in bed, you might want to sleep more, right? But this is a positive mindset that you're doing, is saying on that day, because of these circumstances, I am going to wake as I always do, because I won't be able to stop it. If you do it 5 days a week, you don't stop it at the weekends.
Yeah.
You'll still wake, but you'll just snooze and go back to sleep, even if you don't put the alarm on. So don't think that this is not happening naturally. So I will wake at 6:30. I will get up. I will try not to bring myself into a full wake state by exposing myself to lots of daylight. I probably will hydrate and fuel up a bit, bladder and bowel and stuff like that. But then I'm making the choice that I'm going to go back to bed and I'm going to sleep for another 2 cycles. Not 1, 2. So I'm going to put another 2 cycles in. And I put the alarm on and I go, right, I know I can feel it. I want to go and sleep some more, and I'm going to do it this way. But I've got up at the same time. I've kept some little process in there, and now I'm going back to bed to do this, put another 2 cycles in, because it's been one hell of a week. I didn't get my 35 cycles. I didn't get 30 cycles. I was right down in the 28 cycles, and that was a tough week. So I just want to, it's not like I'm adding another 2 cycles in. It's just I feel I want to go into a mental and physical recovery state on my day off. You might want to put a full 90-minute cycle in between 1 and 3 midday on your day off, because that makes you feel good, and you can do it because there's no pressure there. But again, it's timed. Again, it's controlled. So I don't want anybody to get restricted by this. We hate routines. We hate to be told what to do. So it's a lovely way to just keep all these things balanced. If I've got nothing to do and I don't want to wake up and run around at 6:30, then I wouldn't necessarily put my alarm on for 8 o'clock, which is the next 90-minute slot along. Because I know that that's not helping my brain, because the sun's still come up. I think it's a bit old school for an elite sports sleep coach talking in this manner, but I tell you what, there's so little education at school in this area. Sometimes you have to, Ryan.
Yeah.
You and I, right?
Yeah.
What's your chronotype, Ryan?
I'm a moderate AM. A
moderate AM.
Yeah.
Right. Well, let's just say that you are a PMer then, right? And I'm definitely an AMer, right? So basically, not that long ago, you and I would be sleeping outside, and let's just start with the morning. So we're both there, curled up under a tree. I would not be sleeping right next to you, because humans don't like sleeping with other people. We like to be in our own little space, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah,
it all goes wrong
spread
when
out
we
in the bed.
It all goes wrong when we get regular sleeping partners. So probably there's a fireplace in the middle of us. Yours that side, I'm this side. The sun starts to get close to the horizon. Now the light starts to change. Now, because I'm a morning chronotype, that blue light and that sun starts to trigger in my pineal gland in my brain the shift from a hormone called melatonin to serotonin. And the serotonin tells my brain to unsuppress everything and let's go and be active and happy. So that starts with me. Now, it happens quicker than it does in you as a PM chronotype. So I wake up earlier than you. You're still out for the count because this is not happening with you yet. I make the fire, I put the breakfast on, I make the coffee. Now I'm making noise, it takes me time to do this, and so, a little bit later, you get woken up by the noise, by me sort of wafting coffee under your nose or giving you a prod, because we've got to get on with the day, because if we don't do things while the daylight's there, we're stuffed. So what happens is, I get you on the horse. Let's say we're cowboys. I just thought, there you go.
I was wondering where the coffee was coming from on this island.
Yeah, I just thought, hang on, this is a US podcast. I better be careful. But it's sort of like, in general terms, I will get you ready for the day, right? I'll cook you something to try and make you eat. I'll get some coffee inside you, something to stimulate you. Now, I will lead you through to lunchtime. So I will be the protector. I will be the hunter. I will be everything. I will take you along with me. We stop, we have something to eat, and because we've been active since quite early in the morning, because that could have been 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, season dependent. So we've been very active, and so we will take some food on, and just like any sort of animal, we'll probably just curl up and just have a few minutes, with the cap down under the tree. Mm-hmm. Now then, Ryan says, come on. And now you take me through the afternoon, because my chronotype is now drifting. Now yours is coming into play. So you take me through the afternoon. You're the one who's doing everything. I'm just following you along, helping you out. And because that sun is starting to move right down, lower and lower and lower, the light keeps changing. It's not affecting you, Ryan, but it's affecting me. Mm-hmm. So as the light's gone and we stop, right? We stop, you build the fire, you cook my dinner, I chill out, I will then fall asleep because melatonin has taken over, because the sun went away. The light from the fire is amber light, which doesn't affect this process, it's only the blue light from the sun. So effectively it builds in me and I curl up and go to sleep. You sit there a bit longer doing some other stuff, and then eventually you will pass out later, right?
Right.
Now that's what goes on with human beings every day. But if you just have, it's a bit of a weird way to describe what you're talking about, naps and this and stuff. It doesn't matter what we think of ourselves and what we think we can achieve. And with technology around us, we can sort of appear to be almost indestructible robots that can do everything. The reality is there's a brain and it's a body and it plays with these circadian rhythms. We've always done it this way, and since we've been changing things around, we have made it almost impossible for our brains to cope with being so far away from that process I've just described, to be so immersed in blue light, masses of it all day long, with electric light, with sunlight, with technical devices. We're just overloaded with knowledge and information. We've got so much going on in our heads with distractions of all sorts of things and the fear of missing out and being able to, do things like we're doing right now, Ryan. I'm talking to you for free. I can see you for free on video, and you're the other side of the world. Now you talk to me about that in the 90s when I hadn't even got a phone.
Yeah.
and I was an international marketing director. I think I would have burst out laughing.
Yeah. It's pretty amazing.
So, yeah, it is. It isn't, and it's quite significant. So I think once get that into your head, the one thing that really sort of revolutionizes, only because they didn't spend even half an hour, 30 minutes in the schooling and educational process to just go, do you know what the circadian rhythms are?
Yeah.
Do you know how human beings interact with it? Hands up in the room if you're a morning or nighttime chronotype, kids.
Yeah.
And you go, I'm a morning, I'm a nighttime. Okay, well, I tell you what, when you start to think about having girlfriends and boyfriends, then all the morning chronotypes want nighttime chronotypes, and all the nighttime chronotypes. If you put two nighttime chronotypes together, you've got marriage disaster. If you've got two morning chronotypes, you've got disaster written all over it. By the way, make sure that your partner you're thinking about spending quite a lot of time with and actually sleeping with on a regular basis, if you're right-handed, they need to be left-handed. Because when you're in bed together, because you lost your space and you're out of control now, so one's on one side, one's on the other, that's going to make it even more difficult. So there's lots of little things. And when you start to put it all together, if you ever got to a point like in life, there's challenges comes along. There are changes in circumstances, different occupations we take on. And you have to have something that adapts with that. And one good one, whether you like children or not, is that once you find out 9 months in that you're going to bring a child into this world, and you know that they're going to be sleeping in a polyphasic manner, Ryan, aren't they?
Yeah.
So if you're using a polyphasic cycles approach, you just walk into it, it has no effect on you, and you just keep living your life instead of it crucifying you as if it's some, so I think it's a good example that anybody who looks at the circadian rhythms of the day will notice that waking up around 2, 3, 4 o'clock at night is completely natural. Mm-hmm. So get over it, and put it right,
I could have used you about 10 months ago when my first daughter was born. That would have been it would have been a really big move for me.
Do you obviously think now in hindsight that maybe what you're doing now would really have helped as your child came along?
Oh, it definitely has. So since reading your book, just as an example, my daughter still has some sleeping issues, and before I would get really stressed out, and now if I'm up for more than just a couple minutes and I can't go right back to sleep and she's up, I just stay up. I just stay up until my next cycle, and I catch my next 90-minute cycle, and I don't stress about it because I know that I will have time, as busy as I am, I will have time to get at least, if nothing else, a 20, 30-minute, recovery period. So if I had that 10 months ago, my wife and I could have both been doing a lot better as far as our performance and our mental state. It was, I totally agree with you 100%. And I also think I said I also think that you found your next chronotype dating app.
Yeah. But those sort of things, I think it's why, it's not, writing this book to tell everybody, I know better than everybody else. It's just that in all the years, as you pointed out in the intro, and the last 17 plus years, right in the muck and bullets with elite sports at all levels, all different types of sports, from BMX riders to snowboarders to rowers to sailors to footballers to NFL, NBA, you name it. It's across the piece. Because it's all about humans doing things. And it's just been fascinating. There's so many things that we do not have in that parental into children educational process.
Oh, yeah.
That never happens. We don't have it in schooling. We don't have anything else. And what's going on at the moment is we're blaming generations by saying, shut your tech down before you go to sleep, otherwise you won't sleep. That blue light is really dangerous. Well, actually, no, it makes you work as a human. Don't tell people it's bad. It's just the amount of it you're exposed to. And I think everything gets a bit skewed, and they try to, I'm not sleeping well, I need to take some sleeping tablets, or I need some stimulants, or I need to drink more coffee, and I get fatigued, and oh God, I'm worrying about my sleep, and I wake up in the middle of the night. Well, once you completely evaluate that the person you've chose chosen to sleep with on a regular basis is not compatible to you, not only for the point of that they're a human being. So everybody turns away from their partners when they hit a sleep state. They do all the fun stuff. But when the sleep state comes in, we curl away. We don't want to see them again till the morning, do we? So it's like it's natural to be sleeping inside a bed with another human being. Mm-hmm. So, and then we sleep in smaller beds than single beds that we get as kids. So we put two of us in maybe a double or a king or a queen, when actually it should be as big as two single beds minimum for a sleeping service for two adults. And then we don't understand that, left side opposite to your dominant side is less sensitive. It frees up your dominant side so you can protect yourself. Remember, me and you sat around the fire. We'll curl up on our opposite side. We'll put our personal belongings under our head or whatever, but we're leaving our dominant side to protect us, and the brain likes that. So you're in a secure place to go into a very vulnerable place. So all of these little things in a marginal gains way add up. They add up. And as soon as you start just realizing that and making these little practical changes, I think, as you've experienced and loads of people are, is suddenly they stop worrying about this. And all these little gains of maybe, last month we decided to go to a bigger bed. Or maybe in 2 years' time we're going to do it. So they can actually look forward to change if they can't afford to do it now. But they will not buy a smaller bed ever again because they want the space. They will try and make sure that they can sleep together and make that work. They won't have any problems anymore with, they have to get up to work early. You don't have to. They go to bed earlier than you. You don't, and all this sort of jazz. And certainly the most important days of the week are not the work days. Mm-hmm. They're your days off. Yeah. So don't spend all day catching up on sleep. Get up at the same time and go and enjoy your day off, for God's sake. You know?
We live for the weekends, and hopefully we don't live for the weekends to sleep it off. So.
No, wrong approach.
No, I love you when you talk about the marginal gains, theory and approach, because especially with elite athletes, I think they know full well that those small incremental changes can add up to huge, massive changes of the long course, and especially with sleep. Just as you said, maybe it's removing tech from your bedroom, maybe it's getting your consistent wake time, but over the time, you become a better performer with sleep. So you talked about us as Cowboys and our coffee intake. So. I think something like 150 million Americans in the United States drink coffee, and I think an average of 3.1 cups a day. It's a lot of coffee. So, why should we be monitoring our coffee intake and how much caffeine we're taking in per day?
Caffeine is available in so many different products. Chocolate cake, drinks, you name it, painkillers, and even in decaffeinated products, there's still traces of it. So. All it is the best way to look at it is people can use it to overstimulate. So instead of doing that little 20, like that recharge 20 that me and Ryan do around 1:30, 1 o'clock, 12:30, we go and do a recharge 20, and that boosts us, balances us, gets us going. It's fantastic, right? If you take on a cup of coffee, you're putting this caffeine stimulant into your body, which is not a dangerous product, but it is if you do too much of it. Now we're overstimulating ourselves there, and as the caffeine comes out of our system, because it has a half-life of about 6 hours, for the same volume.
Yep.
So you put it in, and it's then gradually coming out of your system. So what you see is the best way I like to look at it, because it comes from the world of professional cycling around the world. Having your little espresso, your coffee, your little cafe, stop off through the Alps, whatever, is part of the culture of cycling. But they use it in a very professional way. So if you think that with a half-life of 6 or 7 hours, is if you've gone into a sleep state for a period of time, then basically when you're waking up in the morning, you're caffeine-free. So if you think about 300-400 milligrams is about a healthy level of caffeine in your body at any one time. It's a nice level. It's either about that or no caffeine at all. You take your choice. Don't use it at all, or use it. So if I know that that cup of coffee is about 200 milligrams, and I take one in the morning, but I need another one, right? Because it just wasn't quite enough. So I have 2 cups in the morning. Now, I'm up at 400 milligrams. I'm not doing this scientifically. I just know there's about 200 in that. There's about 330 in a Starbucks Grande. Because I know that, because you only have to tap it into your browser, and you can find out where caffeine is, what quantities there are, everything, right?
Yeah.
So, and I then go, right, I basically start my day with 400 milligrams. No, I don't want to go over that. I want to just keep it at that level throughout the day, because it's my little enhancer. But what I want to do is protect that. So, in 3 hours' time, approximately, I could have another coffee, can't I?
Yep.
Because I'll have gone down to 200 milligrams with a half-life, not 400. I put another 200 back up to 400. So that would be a little boost, wouldn't it? But it's nice because I'm having a cup of coffee with Ryan. It's a social thing. I'm not doing it for, but it's like little breaks every 90 minutes. I don't have to have something telling me it's 90 minutes long. I feel it. I know it's there, so I just do it. I just do the break, And I'm going to do it to you in a minute because we'll have been talking too long.
Yeah.
So, and so nicely is, when me and you are going to do our little recharge 20 or 30 midday, is if you do that, then we've gone back down to 200. We just have a little bit of caffeine, right? Another, yeah. That'll kick in about 15, 20 minutes later. So the alarm's on, right? We're zoning out. We're sat somewhere. We don't care. We zone out. The alarm's on for 30 minutes. You do your 20 recharge, and the caffeine just brings you out of it a little bit better and a little bit feeling like you've had, you're not groggy from that nap if you happen to fall asleep. It's how the pilots do it. Right? So you're using it really positively. And then you just keep doing it. As it goes up, you can top up or you can stop. What I don't like is taking on caffeine, say, just in the morning and then stopping at lunchtime. I'm not so sure. I've got nothing to support it other than experience, to be honest, Ryan. But it's what I notice is if you've gone, these 3.1, and that's an average. So some people are a lot more, yeah?
Yeah.
So I've worked with athletes, and it's like a couple of espressos in the morning from their fancy coffee machine. Drop the kids off at school. Then they, pop to see a mate at some, branded coffee house. And, they have their flat white or whatever it is, the cappuccino, up there. Then they get into training and they're chewing this, US military chewing gum, which has got 100 milligrams in every chew. Now, somebody's brought those over because they think that's quite good. It's stimulant. The coaches are all Spanish, so they can't talk to you without an espresso in the hand. And before they get onto even the training ground, these guys were over 1,500 milligrams of caffeine. Now, you stop that at lunchtime, and you're coming off a real downer. By the time you start getting towards the early evening, you're coming right down, right down. So it's sort of like, I like to think that if you like caffeine in your life, fine. It's not a problem at all. It's used very specifically as a performance enhancement in a lot of sports, but you do need to have more of a relationship with it and manage it. You don't have to be that specific, but if you've just got a little bit of knowledge of where it is and what you use in your diet, then you can have this nice flow throughout the day of little moments when you're just giving yourself a little bit of a stimulant with a nice cup of coffee and a chat with Ryan. That's very fine, but you're keeping it under control. And then as you get towards the end of the day, you've done this nice ebb and flow. There's always something there. You've not got rid of it all. And then as you get towards the evening, you want to enjoy your evening, don't you?
Yeah.
Particularly when the summer comes. We want to go and ride our bikes and go swimming and have fun. It's summer, for Christ's sake. So we don't want to be coming off a downer then, do we?
No.
Like going, oh my God, I feel absolutely crap. So if we keep it like that, then 90 minutes before your sleep time, say I've chosen 12:30 tonight. I only want 4 cycles because I'm going playing with Ryan. I don't want to go to bed at 11 and get my 5 cycles. That's too early. I'm just doing 3. I'm doing a 20 recharge tomorrow afternoon, so I'm fine. So, I'm down to 200 again. So a little bit of coffee. Let's go. It's up to 400. So 90 minutes. So, once you start getting to about 3 hours before your sleep time, if you then okay, no more caffeine, you're going to move from 400 down to 200 while I'm getting towards 12:30, and now it's there to help me go into my sleep confidently and naturally, and then it'll just disappear within the first 2 or 3 cycles. Or you can take it down to a much lower level if you want to say 4 hours you don't take any caffeine, or maybe 5 hours before your sleep time you don't add any more caffeine in, so it almost goes down to 0. That's the principle of it, and I think you can work with that then,
for sure.
But a lot of people are just they're just using it in all sorts of different ways to keep themselves away from these big fatigue moments, and they have really sort of bad counterproductive downsides to it, like talking too much.
Well, Nick, we are coming up close here on your 90-minute cycle, so I am going to let you go here in just a minute. Really appreciate you coming on today. I'm really glad to have all your expertise and knowledge here from my audience. I think it's going to be a huge boon for them to have this information. If you want more information from Nick, go to sportsleepcoach.co.uk. He also, again, as I plugged earlier, he has his book, which is Sleep, The Myth of 8 Hours, The Power of Naps, and the New Plan to Recharge Your Body and Mind. From personal experience, and I typically don't recommend things unless I've tried them myself, I've read the book, I've implemented almost all of the procedures. I do need to upgrade my sleep kit, Nick. I'll get on that. But it is life transformative. My mornings have really become something I look forward to now, and I get up and I really relax instead of rushing out the door and getting things done. And it really lets you take back your performance and take back your life. So I highly recommend it to everybody. Again, Nick, thank you so much for coming on the podcast, and really hope to hear more from you in the future and continue to watch what you're doing.
Yeah, I'd love to, Ryan, because there's so much that can be talked about. So, always welcome to come back on at some point in the near future. But thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for sticking around for the very end of the podcast. I know this was a longer one this week, but I really appreciate everyone who sticks around and enjoys this information. If you'd like to go over to prxperform.com, you can get a free ebook. In that ebook, I talk about sleep specifically and really how that helps improve your performance. Sleep is of the utmost importance. It's one of the first things that I work with my clients as far as getting them back to that optimal, limitless state for their performance and their athletic endeavors. You have to optimize sleep. In that ebook, we're going to talk a little bit, give you some practical tips and advice for how to start doing that, along with things like Nick Littlehales' R90 sleep program. Again, please go buy Nick's book. Nick's book has really helped me personally to improve my performance. There are lots of things that we can do for sleep hygiene that I talk about in my ebook and other areas and blog posts, but the book, that R90 program, I feel personally has really helped me, and I think it would help you as well. So check that out, and please tune in next week. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Thanks for listening to the Precision Performance Podcast. Be sure to join us as Dr. Fell combines the collective knowledge of the most influential minds in peak performance.